Hello, boys and girls. My name is Mike Kelly, Real Illusion Forum. Hopefully, we're getting better and better at getting this the right resolution and the right contrast. So think of this as another test. A friend of mine, animator friend of mine on the Real Illusion Forum, is having an issue trying to modify this gal here. I'll show you all the problems. This is what he's got so far. Basically, this is a Gen 8 avatar that he wanted to change, I think, the breastplates on. If you'll notice, they normally come in with these breastplates. And so he wanted to have these not there, and then he wanted to have this weighted properly. That's his issue. Well, so the first thing you can do, obviously, if you don't want the breastplates there, he has them hidden. So all you have to do is just select them and delete them out of there. So now they're no longer part of the equation anymore. So let's not worry about that. So if you have things you don't want to see, just delete them. You'll notice each one of these pieces for the Android comes in attached to various bones. So, for example, this piece that's the foot bone is attached there. There's attached to the foot. Some of these other shapes, calf and neck and others. Some of that's good. For example, the head pieces. There's two head pieces. If we zoom in here, you'll see. Let me hide what the Gen figure is that we're trying to do. There's two head pieces though. There's a let's see if I can find it. I just lost it. Here we go. Okay, so we have this head, which is this interior piece. Let me take out the white there. So you have this white shell that's part of this head, and then you have this. If you take that shell off, you have then this mechanized piece that's on the outside. Okay, so both of those pieces and the mechanized piece, I think I edited for him. I took out some of the mesh, hid the mesh, so that when you actually unhide these and then unhide the Genesis female face, then she comes in on top of that. Okay, so these pieces have to attach to the head. So in other words, these pieces here, and if you'll notice here, they're accessories. They have those little binocular things, or I guess those are eyeglasses. They're accessories, and they attach to the head, and that's proper. And you don't want them to be cloth because you don't want them to deform as the figure moves. So those pieces are correct. However, all those other pieces that we showed you, like this breast piece here, which is attached to the waist, if we attach them to the bones, they're not going to deform as the figure moves. And you might say, well, Mike, it's an Android. Those pieces should be rigid and shouldn't deform. That's possible. The problem with that is you would assume that maybe these Android pieces are not going to be totally inflexible. And so when you put it in a pose, I'll show you a pose here. We'll turn on her face again. So we'll go up to pose and we'll put her into a just some kind of a female pose here that has her say sitting on the floor. All right, so we put her in a pose. You'll notice that some of these pieces don't come out properly. These two pieces here, because they would be attached to the bone here, they'll flip outward and they won't go in the right position that we would want them to. The same for the feet there. You can see how the feet come out here. If we go to just a regular, let's see, I think I have a checking pose position. Here we go. The boxer position, the classic boxer position. And even this one, if you look at it, the tummy plates don't look correct here. See how they're deforming out in that direction? Because again, they're attached to the bones, and as the bones twist, they're kind of twisting as a single rigid plate. So don't look good. The other problem that we have, excuse me, you saw the feet. Well, here's the other problem. The feet are a problem, but also the hands. Look at how the hands are here. His hands are a mess. And that's because, again, they're not, pieces aren't individually attached and they need to be molded to those fingers. And the only way you can do that is convert them to a weight of gloves. Okay? So, those are all the problems with this figure. So, how do we deal with it? So, we already saw we deleted those breastplates out of it, so that's fine. So, the next thing we want to do is just kind of get a standard motion T pose here so we can create this. And so in the scene itself, first thing we want to do is I'll show you the underlying cyborg shape here. Turn these off. There's an underlying cyborg shape. And this actually is clothing. You'll notice again, if you can see that, it shows a shirt. This is clothing. So this thing does deform properly when you put it into a pose, except for the hands. Okay. So again, if you put it into a pose, we'll go here for a checking pose. So if we go here, you'll notice the feet deform properly, these things twist properly, all the stuff looks correct except for these hands. And that's because the hands should be in the boxing position, like this fighter's usually the boxer. That's because the only way to deform these properly is to make them into gloves. So what I did initially is I went ahead and used Blender and brought this rig into Blender and separated those hands from the rig. And the rig itself can be weighted clothing. That's fine. You just weight the default clothing. But you need to weight the hands with the gloves. So, and I think I've shown this on other videos. So in that particular case, so for this particular thing, we want to just get rid of this one and bring in the one that I did all those things to. And I don't know if you've noticed this before. I think some of you have complained from time to time. But if you bring in an item that's weighted the same, it replaces that item. Well, that's what's going to happen here. This Cyborg rig without the hands is weighted the exact same number as this base rig. So when I double click on it, it actually just replaces that base rig. So it puts that base rig in, and you'll notice it doesn't have the hands because I've edited that. And so this is clothing still. Look at the scene. You can see it's still clothing, but now it doesn't have the hands. And then we'll load those hands in separately. And the hands themselves, I'd already gone ahead, saved those out, but I weighted those as gloves. So again, if we go into the scene, I don't know if you can tell, but it has a little picture of mittens there. So those are gloves. So now this part of it is weighted properly. So now, again, if we go to pose and we go to check on that checking pose, somewhere there, we go to the boxer, you'll see that now the hands are correct. You see, it's got the boxing hands now, okay? So now this part of the figure is fine. We're okay so far. So we're getting a little further. Now the last part of the thing that we want to do is weight all of those metal pieces as clothing. So in the scene, we'll go ahead and unhide those. And remember, we want to keep the head pieces as accessories. So if we go into all of here, we'll unhide it. And then I'm going to take out the head pieces because we want to leave those as accessories. Here we are, head here. And there's one more head piece. This head piece. Okay, so now those two head pieces are out of here. So now we've selected all the pieces except for the head. These pieces we want to combine in one piece of clothing. Well, how do we do that? We go over to Modify and go to Merge Accessory. Remember, these are all accessories, all those little eyeglasses. So now we combine them as clothing. Makes this all one big kind of body suit for this character. And once that's done, then we can go ahead and take that piece of clothing, or that bodysuit, and weight it using the default. Apply that, weights that properly. And now, after we're all done with all this, it's just a long process, but at least hopefully you've learned and seen some things about how we can deal with pieces like this around a character. And now we should have a pretty good android, so that if we go into the pose, the checking pose, and to the boxer, you'll notice that now this deforms here on the tummy. These pieces look all nice here. The feet look right, the hands look right, and there we go. Oh, sorry, the hands don't look right. Well, that's good. This is good to show you this. Let's come back here again. Why don't the hands look right? The hands don't look right because I merged all those accessories, but I also included the hands in there. So let's go back, take out the weighting of the clothing, and unmerge these accessories. Luckily, it's a good thing the character creator has a nice buffer that you can go back and undo things. So we'll unmerge all of this crap. Hopefully you guys can see this and it isn't too... I'm working still on my widescreen monitor with a lot of resolution and trying to get the contrast right. A lot of people reported that last time the contrast was too high. Hopefully it isn't too high this time. I'm also running the dark mode on my monitor, which is better for my eyes, but it might be causing contrast problems. Okay, so back to here. So now what we want to do, we want to take out the underlying rig, and then we want to take these pieces for the hands and delete those. Okay, so we delete those hand pieces, and the same thing here. delete those hand pieces. And you might say, well, Mike, they're not all deleting. No, they're not deleting because the gloves thing, we're not deleting those gloves. They're still there. So now we should be okay to go ahead. Once again, we don't want the head, so we want all these pieces except for the head. And point of fact, you can actually merge this in stages. You can go through here, ready to merge just the body, the lower body portion of it, and then you can go ahead and then merge the upper body portion again. However, whatever floats your boat, whichever easier for you to manage, the important thing is just to kind of keep track of everything you're doing, which obviously I didn't do. And then those two pieces, upper and lower body, as long as we don't have the head pieces, and we have the underlying rig and the gloves still separate, we merge all that. So now, finally, with all of that merged, leave those head pieces as accessories, and you might even want to rename this. You could call this a body shell, for example. And then, when you're all done, we'll turn that back on, and we'll go into this body shell piece again. Transfer skin weights. Finally, make it default as apply. And then finally, so you can see I make mistakes too. I make mistakes all the time. The good news is, if you make mistakes, sometimes you'll start recognizing what those mistakes are, and then you'll get it right. So it can happen. And we go back to pose, and now you can see the hands are fine. They're all together there, and everything else in the body looks good. So anyway, hopefully, at least at the very least, this gives you some ideas about how to manage certain things and weighting certain items and merging accessories and making them into one piece of clothing. So if nothing more, I'm sure this helped my friend. So see you on the forums.